Hello, Facebook land. It is your girl, your sister, your friend, your auntie, Erika Brown. I'm here with Soulful Revelations tonight. We got a treat. I'm just going to tell you, we have a treat for you. I'm going to let the panel introduce themselves. We're going to start with Miss Sharice. Go ahead and introduce yourself to the people.
Sharice Young.
Oh, she
What
being
else you want
quiet.
me to say?
She being
Um,
quiet tonight, y'all. All right, we're gonna let our guest who we are interviewing tonight, introduce herself. Introduce yourself to the people.
Hi, everybody. My name is Prophetess Sandra Miller. I'm from Pensacola, Florida.
All right, Miss Miller. So we are talking about Apostle Miller's book. Now I have on the screen My Secret Life Being a Pastor's Wife by Sandra E. Weeks. That was her name when she wrote this book. Her last name is Miller. So I'm only gonna keep this on the screen for a little while because I like her husband. I like Everett. So I'm gonna move this out the way shortly. Okay.
All right.
I like Everett. So just a little background to the reason why you wrote this book, Prophetess.
All right. I got married in 2014, left Pensacola, Florida, moved to where my then husband was pastoring a church over in the U.S. Virgin Islands. And, moved there expecting life to be grand and happy as you do when you get married, thinking this is forever. Um, but there was a turn in the marriage after about being married for 2 months. I became a victim of domestic abuse. And so that's where the book comes into play. I lived that life for 14 months until I felt the Lord gave me a release. Um, and once He gave me the release, I went into a safe house there on the island. I was in the safe house for 5 months, and it's in that safe house is where I wrote this book in 45 days, actually.
Wow. Wow. So, and you were, give me your first take on you. I'm sorry, did you want to add something to that? Sharice, you had a question or anything?
mm,
Okay. Give me your take on how you felt when you first hit St. Thomas, your first visit to St. Thomas.
So my first visit there was really exciting, actually, because I went there to just see what island life would be like. Before we got married, I went to go visit. Um, I was shown around the island. Beautiful place. If you've never been, you have to go because it's just absolutely beautiful. Um, and so I, toured the island. I was there, I believe, for a weekend or a couple of days, maybe a week. I really don't remember the very first time I went. Um, but I toured the island. I felt like, okay, I could see myself living here. I could see myself being happy here. I knew it was going to be a little hard adjusting
Mhm.
because I would have no family there except for the man that I married. So leaving my kids was probably the hardest thing for me to do. But I did it. And like I said, the island was beautiful. I visited the church. Um, when I went to visit the church for the very first time, nobody knew who I was because we didn't make that known. I just wanted to be able to go and see how the people, fellowship and worship God and see what the love would be like to just the visitor coming through the door. So I had a chance to experience what that would be like being the first lady of the church
Mhm.
and them not knowing who I was at the time. Um, so I liked it. I really did. I was like, okay, God, I could do this. I could see this just being, my happy place forever is what I was thinking at the time. This would be my happy place forever. Because I love the water. Being on an island, I really thought it was just going to be the best thing that ever happened to me, honestly. I did.
Awesome. So, in reading your book, in the very beginning, you're praying, not necessarily praying for a husband,
Mm-hmm.
but you were just praying to God and you were presented by your pastor,
Yes.
your husband. Tell me
Yes.
what that, tell me just a little bit about that story.
Okay. So, um, my husband then, him and I had been friends for a long time
Mhm.
already. We had kind of casually hung out, dated, so to speak, um, for a couple of months, and then it just wasn't working out. I'm like, it just wasn't working out. And
Mhm.
so we had lost connection for several years. And him and my pastor were friends, and I didn't know that they were friends, but they had became friends. And Bishop invited him to the church, and he was just there visiting. I believe it was on a Wednesday night. He was in Wednesday night Bible study, and at the
Mhm.
end of service, Bishop asked him if he had any words that, like they do most pastors. You have anything you want to say to the church? Come and greet the
Yeah.
people. And so he got up there to greet the people. And at this time, I worked with the finance committee at the church. And so I was back by the credit card machine, kind of behind the stage. You really couldn't see.
Okay.
And he got up, but because we had huge screens in the church, I could see him on the big screen. And
Okay.
he was up there telling the church how, he was praying. He was praying for something. He was very specific in his prayers and telling God what he wanted. And he was telling God that, he wanted a wife and what he wanted her to look like, how tall he wanted her to be, how long her hair he wanted her hair to be, what skin tone.
Wow.
He was very specific in telling God what he wanted. And I was sitting back at the credit card machine and I'm looking at him on the screen and I just felt it in my spirit. And I said to myself, I said, oh God, he's talking about me. Like, this man is up here telling the church about me. He's got, but because I've known him before, I'm like, yeah, he's talking about me. And so, church was ending and Bishop was getting ready to walk out the door. And he came past the credit card machine because he has to walk past that space to go out the side door to get into his office. And he looked to the right and he saw me and he said, I need to see you. And so his adjutants came and got me after church. They took me to his office. And we sat down. He asked me, well, how you doing? And I said, I'm doing well, Bishop. Feeling a little nervous because I don't know why I'm here right now. I didn't do anything. I'm not in trouble, am I? And he said, I want to ask you a question. And I was like, okay. And he said, so, how do you feel about Apostle Weeks? And I was like, I don't feel nothing about Apostle Weeks. Nothing at all, as a matter of fact. I've known him since my baby was 4 or 5 years old. We was friends for a long time, casually dated a little bit, but other than that, he's a good person. I think he's a great guy. Other than that, I don't think nothing about him possibly. And he began to tell me how, people change, they grow and they change, and people make mistakes, and God's grace, covers them and it gives them a chance to change and grow. And so, you just gotta have your mind open and such. And so he told me to pray about him. He was like, I need you to pray about him. He said, because God is gonna do something and he don't want me to miss what God is doing. And I was just like, okay, I don't know where this is coming from, but all right. But he had already been talking to um, my bishop about me, is what I didn't know. That he had
Mm.
already been talking to him about me. And so when Bishop presented him, I'm like, yeah, he good people. That's all I can tell you. That's about it.
Oh.
But I prayed, the couple of days I came in the morning prayer and I prayed and I was just like, okay, God, everything I know about this man, I need you to just block that so that I can hear you clearly. And I began to pray about it. And what the Lord told me at first, I wasn't too thrilled about it because I'm like, because I remember him back then. So, God was like, I've called you to walk so with this man that he told me first, he said that he called me to be his wife. That's gonna be my husband. And I was like, no, God. And the Lord said that I've called you to walk with this man so much to the fact that you would have the exact same initials when you get married. You'll have the exact same initials. And so I just knew what his first
Wow.
name was and his last name was, but I never knew his middle name. Although I've known him for 20 something odd years, I never knew his middle name. And so I asked him what his middle name was, and he said it was Emmanuel. And I was like, whoa,
Mm,
okay. And when I looked at my initials, which was would have been Sandra Elaine Weeks, it's SEW. His initials was SEW. And so that was the Lord's way of confirming for me that, yeah, this is what I'm doing in your life at this time and this season. That you're gonna be connected, so that I am sewing you together, and what God has put together, let no man put us under. And I was like,
mm.
okay, God. So then I started thanking God for my husband. Wasn't looking for a husband, didn't want a husband, wasn't praying about a husband
Yeah,
at, at all. I enjoyed my single life. Yes, I did.
yeah, yeah. Awesome. So I heard you say something. You said your pastor said people change.
Hmm.
Sharice, tell me, what do you feel about the word people change?
Well, you
Or the
know what I
statement?
say. People don't change, they modify their behavior to get what they want. Well, because that's, I guess maybe because I dealt with a bunch of liars in my life, and that's probably where I got that concept. I'm not saying that's biblical, I'm just saying that was my thoughts.
I get
Um, so, yeah. But Sandra, I do have a question. How old were your children when you went over to be with your husband?
They were all adults.
Were they
They
small?
yeah,
Okay,
they were
okay,
all in
okay,
their 30s. Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely. My motto about people changing is, if God ain't changed you, you ain't changed.
Amen.
Yeah,
Amen.
That's
yeah,
it. If
God
God
can do
ain't changed
yeah,
you, that's it. You're the same person. You might,
right.
show up differently,
yeah.
but God ain't changed you, you ain't changed. Yeah.
And after I got into the marriage, I came to realize that he hadn't changed. It's just the spirit in which he was operating in when I knew him back when was
Mhm.
just laying dormant.
Mm.
It was just laying dormant.
Yeah.
I'm here and I'm not going to show up until I need to show up. And
Uh,
so that's what I believe. I believe that spirit was just
oh
laying
yeah.
dormant.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So in the very beginning of your book, there's a dedication,
Hmm.
and it says, "I write this testimony in dedication to my fellow sisters in Christ, the elect women of God all over the nation. You were elected, anointed, and appointed by God to stand. Yes, my sisters, sometimes to stand alone."
Hmm.
So tell me, what was the feeling behind that? And you have a scripture after that, but I'm going to stop right there.
My feeling behind that was when I was going through my situation of dealing with domestic abuse as a not just a pastor's wife, but as an apostle's wife. Um, I found myself standing alone. I reached out to people within the church, um, but because he was there before I was, and that relationship was already developed with them, and they knew a different side of him.
Mhm,
There wasn't very many people that believed me.
mhm,
I reached out to people outside of the church, um, and they didn't believe me. They because of who he was, him being an apostle, him pastoring on an island, and being very well known in the community, did a lot of great things in the community and helped a lot of people.
mhm.
He was still, he was still a great man in the community. It was just
Yeah.
in the home where the problem was. But that's
Yes.
that's where that came from, of having to stand alone. And actually, once the book was published and a couple of pastors' wives read the book, I had some reach out to me, just kind of letting me know that this is their story, but they would never be able to voice it. they would never be able to share it. Some are not willing to give up their lifestyle. Some are not willing to, as one lady told me, I don't want to attack his character like that. And me thinking, well, what kind
Wow.
of character does he have? what kind of character does he have? But I
Yeah,
later understood you don't want to attack the character that the people know about him.
yeah,
That good side of him that because it's not like this always. But I found myself being very alone, being very afraid sometimes, being very lonely sometimes, not knowing, who you can call, who you can talk to. But I had one very, very, very good friend that at the end of the book, you'll see her name,
okay,
Elder Cynthia Brown,
okay,
that literally helped pray me through and encourage me. She prayed with me, she prayed for me. I could call her and she would just listen. A lot of times she wouldn't say anything, she would just listen. I can honestly say, in everything that I have shared with her concerning my marriage and what I was going through, she never told me, lady, you need to leave. You need
hmm,
to pack up and go. You need to call the police. She never said anything negative to me concerning him. She never said anything negative to me about me staying. She just prayed with me.
yeah,
She just prayed with me and prayed for
yeah,
me.
yeah. I think sometimes that's the hardest part as a friend when you're watching your friends go through things.
Hmm.
Um, is never taking it personally.
Right.
Like as a friend,
Yeah.
we're here to listen. We're not here to judge. We're not
Uh-huh.
here to judge your situation or tell you, girl, I wouldn't do this. If it was me, I would. They don't need to hear that when you're going through tough times. Your friends need a friend in that
Mhm.
moment. And a friend is
Absolutely.
not the one to tell you what they won't take and what you crazy for taking or why you doing this and that and I think and just wholeheartedly in the Black community I've seen that so much where
Hmm.
you're telling people how crazy they are in a situation, whereas as a friend they just need a listening ear to help talk them through the situation when
Right.
they're ready.
Right.
Like people leave when they're ready, but if they have a support system, it'll give them strength to leave. But while
Yes.
you calling them crazy and they need to get out of it, and now the person is thinking, "Oh, now my friend Erika think I'm crazy," and
Hmm.
so they're battling even more
Yep.
than just the relationship. So I think I'm so glad that you had that person in your life, someone that you can actually listen to. And this is for those who are listening in. And I just want to just make this disclaimer. Um, there are people that are gonna hear this message and they're gonna be delivered. There are people that are gonna hear this message just because they know. Period.
Amen.
Just because they see this and say, "Oh, they talk about a secret of a pastor's wife." Let me know. But whoever
Mhm.
those people, they ain't our people. We are talking to the people who really want to get delivered from a situation that they are in, and they need
Mhm.
to move to the next level. So I know it's people
Right.
out there that just knows it, that's gonna see it, but it is what it is. They say let your haters be your motivators. So I just wanted to say that disclaimer there because this is a book that you wrote to in your darkest time
Yep.
in order to build someone else up. And people don't understand that if they read the book of Job, in the very beginning of the book, it says Job was an upright man. But in the
Hmm.
last chapter, after all of what he went through, it says the last state of the man was better than the first state of the man.
Right.
So it's
Right.
something that we have to
Mhm.
face in order to get to that next level. And while you bashing your friend from going through it, you don't know when she come out on the other end,
Baby.
baby, baby,
Yeah.
she gonna be stronger than you because you too focused on why she going through what she going through.
Yep. That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
But when she come out on that other end, she gonna be a force to be reckoned with. Period. Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah.
Go ahead. You want to add something in, Sharice?
I just want to say that one of the things that people ask me, they say to me, I can't believe that um, you went through all the things you've been through in your life. And they say, you definitely don't look like what you've been through. And I say, one of the things that strengthens, keeps strengthening me is when I have strengthened you, go back and get your brethren. And that's the testimony of my life, because when
Yeah.
God has strengthened me enough, I can go back and help somebody else without judgment.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's hard. It's hard for people to see themselves that way, merely because don't nobody want to be on the other end of that stick. Nobody
Right.
wants to
Right,
be on the end of the stick that's going through something and faced with reality and going through holding a secret in a marriage. Nobody wants to go through that. So it's
Right.
easy to point the finger at
yeah,
other people so you can take the fingers off yourself. Yeah.
Yep.
But
right,
if you married, you've gone through some things. If you've been married, you've gone through some things. Marriage is not easy.
It's
Marriage is
not.
not easy at all.
No,
All right.
ma'am.
and the first
Okay.
thing people like to say, one of the first things people like to say is, why you didn't tell me you was going through that? Like they had the capability of
Doing
doing
something.
something that,
Right.
yeah, that they had the
Yeah.
capability of doing something, or even if they probably wouldn't have if you gave them the opportunity to.
Yes. Yes. And for me, I am and have always been a very private person when it comes down to my life. And
Hmm.
for people, I deal with things very differently when I'm going through things. I very much internalize a lot. As big of a personality that I have on the outside, when I'm going through something, I internalize it. And I do that because I have to give myself time to process what I'm going through before I go
Hmm.
shooting it off to everybody else.
Right. Right.
And that's my time that I need to process whatever I'm going through. And if people don't understand that, they was like, well, just tell me what you're going through. Not right now. Like what I'm going through right now, I can't even talk about right now. This is between me and God right now. That's it.
Hmm.
That's it.
Yep.
Um, you said something in the book. It says, I think you just discussed it just a minute ago. You said, Lord, he has told you he wanted me. So it was like almost like were you in shock that this man told God that he wanted you?
Oh, absolutely. I
Okay.
was. I was. And it's funny you would bring that up because I just had this conversation with my mother several weeks ago.
Okay.
He was getting married before, and he actually came to me and he said to me, God has told me that you're my wife, but I'm going to ask you to marry me, and if you tell me no, that he was going to go get married. And I told him, well,
Mm.
I wish you the best of luck because
Right.
happy for you. Hope it all works out. All of that because and at that time, I think I had just gotten saved, and I'm like, boy, ain't no. I ain't even looking for a husband. I don't desire a husband. I don't want to be married.
Mm,
And then 9, 10 years later, it comes back full circle.
mm,
So the Lord is telling me that, yeah, this is your husband. This is the man. And I'm like, God, he can't be.
mm,
Can't be. So I was very shocked. I was because I think in my mind at the time I was thinking like after all these years you still trying to marry me like
mm,
don't move on kind of thing.
mm.
Yeah,
Well, then.
I was shocked. I was.
Okay. 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 So it's in the book, as I was reading your book, it seems like you were initially angry with God when he told you that this was your husband.
Mm-hmm. I was, because like I said, I was very much single. I was very much enjoying my single life.
Okay.
Um, I was serving God and able to just move freely. And I knew getting married for me was going to change a whole lot of things. For one,
Mhm.
and then with him living on an island, I knew he wasn't moving back to Pensacola. But I was excited about moving to the island part, but just the fact of God, I don't want to get married right now. I really wasn't looking for a husband. I really didn't want a husband.
Mhm.
And if I had the thought of having one, it certainly was not him. And just being honest with him. But after I began to embrace it, like I said, I was like, okay, I've known him for years. We've been friends for years. Him changing and me thinking, him being who he who he was called to be. Um, things would just be things would just be really good. I thought they would be really good. I really did. I'm like,
Okay.
okay, I could see us, me moving to the island and us doing ministry together, and people's lives changing. um I thought at one time, like, we would have the marriage that would help deliver other marriages that were in trouble.
Mm.
When our whole story came about of us dating before and losing contact, and the Lord bringing us back full circle, I thought it was going to be a great thing. I really did.
Awesome. So, do
I
you?
have a question for you.
Oh,
Oh, go ahead.
go ahead.
So, well, I have two questions. When you say the abuse, was it physical or was it more so verbal or both?
It was both. It started off being physical. The first time it happened, it was more physical. Um, Now I'll honestly tell you, I've never been punched or slapped or anything like that. He would never do anything in a way of leaving marks or bruises. It was more of, I'm gonna grab you and shake you and maybe pin you up against the wall, and I talked about this the first time it happened. That's what happened. He grabbed me and he threw me up against the wall. But when he pinned me up against the wall, my head hit the wall, and this small plate that was hanging on the wall fell down. And he was so close to me that as he was talking, like, he actually bit my lip, because he wasn't just talking. He was yelling, he was screaming, he was fussing. Um, and so it started off being physical. It went to being verbal, and then the thing that took me out the most, that I struggled with, is that it became more of a spiritual abuse, if that makes sense. Him being
Yeah.
the title that he had in the body of Christ, him having that title and trying to make me feel like, you don't hear God like you think you hear God, and God don't talk like that, and God don't speak like that, and if you think God said that, you must be crazy, because I'm an apostle, and God just don't talk like that. And so the spiritual abuse was probably the worst part, if that makes sense to anybody,
Oh yeah.
because I know that God has called me to be an intercessor, and I wasn't allowed to pray in the home. Don't nobody want to hear all that at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. No, God's not pleased that you up there praying and your husband down here in the bed.
Mm,
You think that's how God is pleased with that? You must be crazy. Um, didn't want worship music in the home, because don't nobody want to hear that all the time. That kind of stuff.
mm.
And I'm
Mm.
like, what? I
So,
thought we was gonna encourage each other and pray for each other and pour into each other, and study the word more. And I just knew I was about to start growing. Yeah, it was not
right.
that. It was
So
physical.
my second question is, I know that I've been never married to anybody that was a pastor or preacher, but in the sense of being married and dealing with those spiritual things, when somebody is attacking you to the point of you question God, but you're sitting in a place with a bunch of people who are worshiping and do not know the person that you are actually married to. How did you get strength to face the people in a wounded state? Because I know that that has, um, when you are trying your best to please God in your marriage and you are dealing with all of these attacks spiritually, when you go in the house of God, you are so weak and wounded and weary in your spirit. How did you maneuver? Did you have to tell yourself, girl, you got this, I can do this? Or was it just, let me just keep my mouth closed and I'm just going to get through this service and then I'm going to go home? What did that look like?
For me, it was actually all of the above. Before I got there on the drive to church, I was telling myself, okay, you got to pull yourself together because don't nobody know what's happening. And this is also after I had spoken to some people at the church about it. Just going in
Mm.
knowing that, okay, you got to smile because that's what they expect of you. You the first lady sitting up here on this platform, so you have to have that first lady look. You can't show the people, reveal to the people, by my demeanor of what I'm going through. So I had to tell myself that. I just had to pull myself together. And after I would get into the service, a lot of times I would sit there with my eyes closed on the
Wow.
platform with my eyes closed while praise and worship is going on. I've always been able to just get into that place with God, and no matter how many people's in the room. And so while I'm worshiping and I'm praising God, that's where I'm getting my strength from. And when I would sit down in my seat, a lot of times I would sit there with my eyes closed, or I would have my Bible open on my lap, looking down on it, not necessarily even reading, but just so they could not see my face.
Mm.
A lot of Sundays I thought, because you always hear people say, "Oh, I'm praying for you. No, God bless y'all. I'm praying for y'all," kind of thing. And I used to think, how could you be praying and God's not revealing anything? Like, what are you praying for? What are you praying?
Mm.
Are you just saying a generic prayer, or are you really on your faith interceding for us?
Mm.
Because
Right,
Mm.
I believe
right,
you could be doing all this praying that you say you praying and God is not revealing. Now, there was one
right.
sister in the church that came to me after one Sunday. She actually called me on Monday. I guess that Sunday I was just really having a hard time. So I got off the platform and I walked through the church and I just went upstairs to his office. And I was up there for a while and he sent for somebody to come, to send up there for me to come back into the church. And I came. But that Monday, she called me and she let me know that she had been praying for me, and in the midnight hour God woke her up. She said, and the Lord told her that it was going to come a time that I was going to have to take a stand. You're just going to have to take a stand. And I told her, I said, you have no idea what I'm going through. And she said, I don't know everything, but I know God said you're going to have to take a stand. You're going to have to decide, and you're going to do this thing for God, or you just going to give in. And she told me that at a time when because it wasn't abuse all the time. It wasn't verbal abuse all the time. It was only when alcohol came into play. Let me make that clear.
Mm.
It wasn't just a
Mm,
continuous
okay.
all the time. Every time you come in the house, I'm getting being verbally abused or physically abused. It was only when there was alcohol came into play that all of
Mm.
this abuse and arguments and everything would stem from that.
Mhm.
And it got so bad to where he was encouraging me to have a drink because you so holy, oh, you can't have a glass of wine with your husband.
Mhm.
I don't do that. And I'm like, no, I'm not gonna do that. But it came to a point where for me to have peace in my home, you know what, God, I'm gonna just have this drink of wine because I don't want to argue tonight. I don't want to be fussing tonight. I just want to come home, have a nice, quiet evening, and that's just it. And so I just believe, God must have shown her something in the spirit for her to let me know you're gonna have to
Mhm.
take a stand.
Yeah.
You just don't have to stand for God, or you gonna bow down and give it to the enemy.
Yeah.
And the night came that he wanted me to have, and I'm like, I'm not doing it. I'm just not. I'm not gonna do it. I had to take a stand and just trust God in it. Whatever it's gonna be, God is gonna be, because I'm not
Yeah.
having another drink.
Yeah. Yeah. I think when I read a piece in the book, it says, let me go back to it. Now I would not find it, huh? But it was talking about you either gonna be uh, stupid or you was gonna stand for something. And God kept telling you, no matter what husband I sent you, keep your eyes open.
Yes, God.
Yeah.
God was talking to me about being submissive. Talking to
Okay.
me about being submissive, because what he explained to me was, in my other marriages, I wasn't submissive. I was that strong black woman that they raised me to be. You ain't
Yeah.
gonna do
Oh yeah.
something any kind of way. You ain't just gonna do this any kind of way. And so the Lord was telling me, in this marriage, you're gonna have to be submissive. And I was asking God, what, you know, how do I submit? What should I do and what I should not do is basically what I was asking God. And he let me know that if you being submissive, but you don't be stupid, if it
That's
lines
it.
up with the will of God, then you submit to that.
That's it. It says
If
there's a thin line
you
between
do something,
submission and stupidity.
yes,
That was it.
if
Yeah.
he
Hmm.
asks you to do something and it does not line up with my word, don't be stupid, Sandra. You don't have to submit to
Yes.
that,
Right.
Yeah.
because that's not of God. So
Right.
he's let me, it's a thin line between being submissive and being stupid. And I had to know the difference in submitting, because
It's
when
between the
God's
two.
telling me you haven't done this in your other marriages, and you're telling me that this is the man you gave me, of course I want to be able to submit to my husband, to
Yeah.
his leading, to his authority. But yeah, it caused me to do some stupid things.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that 14 months wasn't a very long time, but all what you went through probably seemed like an eternity. For
It
14 months.
Yeah.
really is. And
Yeah.
I even said that to God, like, why do I feel like I'm going through things that people that have been married 25 and 30 years have been
Yep.
through?
Yep.
And I've only been married for just a couple of months.
Yeah.
But I didn't
Mm.
understand, but I learned later that in order to be effective in ministry, you're gonna have to go through what some people went through. You got to feel what they feel. So when you speak to them, you can
Yep.
speak to them with empathy and compassion.
Yes.
Just,
Yes. Yes. And yes. Yes,
yeah.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I think that's the hardest part for people to understand. When for you to have to go through to be previously married before
Hmm.
and then get in this short marriage and
Hmm.
to have to go through what you've gone through, it's like God put you in just so he could shake you up and you can feel all this stuff that these women that you're going to minister to later feel
Yes.
and
Yes.
snatch you out real quick. I don't want you in there too long, daughter. I just need you to be in there long enough so you can be able to minister to some people when I pull you out of here.
Right.
And you can be
Oh yeah.
non-judgmental, and you can
Yeah.
be, able to talk someone through and pray someone through and understand and feel what they feel because you felt everything that they have felt. Yes,
Hmm.
Everything.
absolutely.
That's
I
where
think,
the compassion comes in. The empathy and compassion plays a role in that ministry
mhm,
Yes.
absolutely,
gift.
definitely, definitely, definitely.
Yes.
I think if submission, if understanding there's a thin line between submission and stupidity, it'll be a whole lot more pastors' wives standing up for what God say to stand up for.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
it's putting that trust solely in men and not in God. I don't
Right.
care about the
Yeah.
gift that God gave him. I care about the gift giver. So
Yes.
if we're not doing what he told us to do, regardless of what this man is doing, you better do what God tell you to do.
Yep.
Period.
And that's what I
And
had to
that's
do.
and I think that's one of the things you kept saying. God kept telling you, you got to stand on me.
Yep.
The whole time you got to stand on me. Sharice, give us a
It,
go ahead,
it was
Sandra. I'm
hard.
sorry.
It was hard to do
Yeah,
that, but it built my faith in God even more, and it
yes,
took me to a place of trusting God on another level.
yes,
Oh yeah.
Took me to
yes,
trusting God on another level because I'm
absolutely.
like, the faith. You think you got so much faith until you really have to exercise that faith for real, for real. Like that was a for real exercise of my faith.
Yes, for
That
real,
was
for real.
Lord, I believe you're gonna pay this bill. No, this was more so, okay, God, I'm gonna stand on your word and I'm gonna trust you with this, and I got this
Yeah,
trust and believe that no matter what comes or what goes, I'm not gonna lose my life over here in this marriage.
yeah,
You got me.
yeah,
You got me. You
Yeah.
got a
absolutely,
perfect plan over
absolutely.
this. I don't know what it is, but I know you got
Yeah. Sharice, I want you to maybe give a brief synopsis of a story that you had to um, get in and get out of, and that God had to teach you a lesson quickly to get you in and get you out for the benefit of
It
God's
may
people.
have it may have been the first domestic situation that I was in. Um, I was carrying my first child, and we was having hot girl summer. But I wanted to be in a relationship, and I saw this guy, and that he was appealing to the eye.
We
Um,
all saw, we all
and
saw at the
me. Hmm.
same time, but she
sure did now. So, so it took, and by me, even though I grew up in projects and hung in the projects as a teenager, it took, and this was like, I'm 19 years old. I don't want to be with this child's father, but I need a daddy for this child. So I made my way to that man, and not even knowing. And one of my friends had said to me that she had heard some things about him, and I was so green. I was like, "Well, how do you know?" He was on drugs, and I was like, "How do you know that?" And so then she started giving me these symptoms, because we all know God gonna speak to whoever He want to speak to through to get what you need from Him. And so I was in a secret mode, and I realized. So my sister used to go to this Holiness Pentecostal church, and I would visit, but because I didn't grow up in church, I didn't really understand what was going on. But the one concept that I got, well, I asked my sister, I said, "What is that thing where when y'all get on y'all knees and y'all just start calling on Jesus over and over?" And she said, "Hearing." I said, "Okay." To get myself out of that situation, I remember the first time I got on my knees, because I had nobody. I felt alone. I did not have a telephone. We didn't have cell phones back then. I didn't have a telephone to pick up a phone and call somebody. I couldn't call Erika and say, "Girl, come over here. I need you." Or so I came up with a plan. The moment that I realized that he was trying to not want me to further my education, to get, because I dropped out of school. He didn't want me to go back to school and get an education. But when I geared myself up to get rid of him, I remember getting on my knees and calling on Jesus for the very first time. And I made a decision. I said, "Okay, I'm gonna have to treat this like the women on Lifetime. I'm gonna have to fight. I'm gonna have to push through, like I'm leaving in a hurry." And so I came up with this plan, and I called my sister. And she was like, "I can't believe you didn't tell me you was going through all this." So the very night that I was abused for hours, kicked and stomped. And I told my sister, let me handle this the way that I want to handle this. And when I got the courage to leave, I just picked my baby up and I ran. And I remember putting some people in a position where they had to feel like they were having almost wanted to put me in a safe place with me and my child. And I said, no, I'm just going to go. And I told my sister, I don't call you by a certain time. I need you to come find me, make sure I'm okay. So the police took hours before they came. And I remember the first time I heard the Lord say, when I left, I was terrified. I didn't go to sleep. I said, and I remember hearing the voice of the Lord say to me, it's okay. You can go home now. Girl, I went in the house, I asked my sister, I said, you got some garbage bags? I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. But that was the first time that I felt safety in him.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was able to then, as I grew up, able to help other people deal with being in those type of situations and not share,
Mm-hmm.
what they went through. And I think a lot of times people think that when somebody trusts you enough to come to you, you have to go and spread this and girl, what such and such went through. But when God has called you to be able to minister to somebody in a secret place of comfort and security, we should not never take that lightly. I'm not called to be no prophetess and don't want to be nobody's pastor, but I have gifts. And that's one of mine is just to be there to love on people because I've been through a tremendous amount of things in my life and I share and I use my empathy to love on people.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Sandra, I want you to share something with the people. I'm gonna just let you all know this book is actually on Amazon. My Secret Life Being a Pastor's Wife. She does have a second edition. The second edition isn't on Amazon though, is it?
It is not, but it
Okay.
is on smashwords.com. You can actually get the ebook for like $2.95.
Okay. So smashwords.com is the second version. That's it right there. Yep,
Yeah,
that's
that's
it right there.
Okay.
So that's the second version of the book.
yeah.
And that book goes into the first book kind of sets you up. The second book goes into a whole lot of detail.
Yeah.
To the point that I read the second one first before I read the first one.
Hmm.
And I gave it over to my mother. And after she finished reading the second one, she called me and said, this lady did not go through all this stuff. Did she really go through all this stuff? I said, yes, ma'am. Do you know her? And I was like, yes, ma'am, I do.
That sounds just like her.
Yeah. And then she done passed it on to all the church members and the church so they can read the book. But I want you to share with the people. You said earlier that you were in a shelter for a little while after you left your marriage while you were in St. Thomas.
Hmm.
Explain to us your hardest day in the shelter.
My hardest day in the shelter. Ooh, girl. A lot of them was some hard days. I guess my hardest day probably have been I was there at the shelter and I was blessed and fortunate enough. I know I was just set up by God to be there. Because the way the house was made, there was a downstairs to the
Mhm.
house. And I was the only person that was downstairs. So I had my own room and I had my own bathroom and I had my own kitchen where
Mhm.
everybody else upstairs had to share all those facilities. So I know it was God.
Okay.
Um, my hardest day of being in that shelter is I went into the bathroom and I was starting to get dressed and I looked at myself in the mirror and I just didn't look like me. Like there was no bruises, there wasn't anything wrong with me, but me just looking at myself, I thought to myself, I just don't look like myself to me. And I begin to wonder, like, when I go out of the shelter and I go walk the streets of St. Thomas to go do my laundry or go grab something to eat, what do other people see? If I'm looking at me and I don't look like me, what do I look like to these other people when I'm walking down the street? And I actually remember writing on the mirror of the bathroom. I took a small marker and I wrote on the mirror of the bathroom, and I took a picture of me standing in front of the mirror. And it's so funny because the shirt that I actually put on that day, not realizing, the shirt said, "I'm anointed for this." And when I took the picture looking at myself in the mirror, and my eyes focused on the shirt, and I was just like, okay, God, I know you got me. I know you got me. In spite of all that I'm going through and everything that I've been through, and even being here in the shelter on an island where, a lot of some of the people that I came encounter to that was there in the shelter didn't really understand the American language. And so that was really hard for me. But standing there in that mirror, looking at myself at that point and seeing that shirt on, I had to encourage myself and say, okay, I know God got me. I
Yeah.
got me. You,
Yeah.
I may not look like myself, but inside I had to look past what I was seeing outside and look into the
Yeah.
spirit of who I was,
Yeah.
who God was calling me to be. And at that point, when I realized I had on that shirt that says I'm anointed for this, that's what the enemy was trying to kill. Not necessarily me, but the enemy was trying to kill who God was calling me to be and trying to kill my spirit.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. That's good. That's good. That's good. I can say I too have had that experience, looking in the mirror and not seeing myself,
Hmm.
and through a relationship, and understanding one of the biggest things that, and this was years ago, one of the biggest things that I've always prided myself on is for my nieces to be able to look up to me as a woman,
Hmm.
Right.
and for them to see me as a woman. And when I looked at a situation that I was in, and I told myself, will your nieces be proud of the woman that you are right now?
Mm. Wow.
And I said no. I said no, they would not be proud of me staying in a situation that I was in. So
Hmm.
it was always, because I have no children. So my nieces were such a huge part of my nephews as well, but them seeing me as a woman was always very critical to me. And my best friend could attest that I never brought anyone around them because I protected them so much that I
Hmm.
wanted them to
Mm.
see the woman that I was supposed to be. Not me going in and out of relationships, not me, showing them things in life that they shouldn't be doing, not any of that. I
Hmm.
always wanted to be, for them to be able to see me and say, that is the type of woman that I want to be.
Yeah.
Right.
And being in that situation, I looked at myself and I said, I would not do them due diligence by staying in this situation. And it's
Mm.
it
Yeah.
was and the one thing is, I saw my nieces, but in me I had so many more nieces I needed to minister to that were not blood. So many
Hmm.
Right.
more women I needed to minister to that were no kin to me. And I saw
Right.
them, and I said, if I stay here, I couldn't reach them.
Yeah.
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 So it was
Because
bigger than just me. Yeah. Go
yeah,
ahead, Britt.
I just know that sometimes it's just like there are those certain things that you know. And Sandra, you know what I mean when you say, when you look at situations you put yourself in or you've been through. You say, if my children knew that, they would ask me, why did you sacrifice that? Sometimes we um unconsciously don't even think about the effects of things that we go through, that how it affects. I remember when I left school, and I got pregnant with my oldest daughter, I said, um, if I don't finish school, this child might grow up and say, how you gonna tell me to finish high school and you didn't finish high school? And baby, listen, I got that. She is one of the ones that would tell me that if I had if I had not. So yeah, we do think about those things. I think for me, with my smaller kids, that was one of the reasons that made me leave. Is because I said, what are you presenting to them,
Mm-hmm.
that it what are you going to be able to tell them when they say, how could you let this person talk to you, talk down to you, and call you out of your name, and you still stay? Are you What you really want is for your children to have family, but is that the family that you want for your children? And I don't he's still working on me, because I don't have I act like I'm his, like God is my real dad, and I'll say, now you know I'm finna lead this, don't you, right? Because I'm not staying here. We gonna go,
Goodness.
so
Well, listen. Sometimes God knows His children.
Right.
right,
He knows His children. He knows where each and every one of us are. And your 14 months was to build Sandra Miller.
Yes.
It was just a
right,
process in building prophetess Sandra Miller.
Yeah.
And I just want to kind of express to the people just a little bit of who Prophetess Miller is. She has a what's the name of your ministry? You told me before, but what is the name of your ministry?
For the domestic violence or just the
No,
ministry name?
your ministry between you and your husband.
It's Sandra Miller's Lighthouse Ministry.
Sandra Miller's Lighthouse Ministry. So
Yes.
she's a minister. She's an apostle. Y'all think I travel? Oh no, 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 no. No, 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 no. Prophetess and her husband Everett, I know they're going somewhere every other week. I promise you. It seems that way anyway. So now I just go like about 6 times a year. No, no, no. She go by 6 times in about 2 or 3 months. That she is gone, gone, gone. So she is a world traveler. Very much so.
We like
Yes.
it.
Yes. And she is currently married. Tell us a little bit about your current husband now.
So my current husband was my second husband. um, we've known each other since we were in, well, he was high school, I was in middle school.
Okay.
Um, we moved to Pensacola, Florida in 1983. We were neighbors for years, years and years and years. And he would come over to my mother's house and he called my mother Aunt Rose, and my sisters and brothers was his cousins, and then I was just Sandra. And he never referred to me as the cousin.
I'm
He used
sure.
look, he used to tell my family before we got married the first time. He told my family that I was gonna be his wife, and I'm like, boy, I don't even like you like that. No, I'm not gonna be. But he made that known to everybody in our family. Anybody that came to town to visit, he would let them know that I was going to be his wife. My grandmother
Mm.
came here and she told me, she said, "Child, this boy got the patience of Job, because it's been 15 years and he's waiting on you to be his wife."
Oh, good. I love it.
And several years went by, and we got married. And I honestly say, we got married and we probably should not have at that time, because he was still very much a mama's boy, and I was a strong, opinionated, um, mouthy black girl. And it was gonna be my way or no way at all. This is what it's gonna be. If you don't like it, you can leave, kind of person. That's who I was. I was trying to live for Jesus. but I was still gonna have my way though.
Oh goodness.
We were
Yes.
married all of 6 months, and I was like, no, this not working. It's just not working. And so we divorced. And at that time, he didn't want it. When we went before the judge asked us why we here, and he told the judge we here because she want to be here. And he just wanted me to be happy so much that if I thought I was gonna be happy being divorced, he gave it to me.
Um,
And, time went by and he remarried, and that's when I married Mr. Weeks. And both of us went through a very crazy marriage. It was good in the beginning, and then it just kind of turned its way. And
mhm.
his wife passed from COVID-19, and of course, I was divorced. And after being divorced for 8 years, the Lord brought us back into contact. And so we dated for a year. I was actually living in Colorado Springs when the Lord brought us back into contact, and I came to Florida to visit, and we went and had breakfast and we hung out. And then when I moved back to Pensacola, he actually came to Colorado to help me drive back to Pensacola. I did all the driving though. I'm just saying, I did all the driving.
That's that controlling thing a little bit. That might be that controlling thing.
I drove from Colorado Springs to Lafayette, Louisiana. I'm like, now you can have
Oh
it.
my God.
um, but we came back, and we became friends all over again because he had to
Good.
learn that I'm not the girl that I used to be.
Yes.
Um, because he thought that he was getting the girl that I used to be, and really you don't want her anyway. But I'm
No,
not that girl anymore.
I get it.
We dated for a year and just got to know each other.
Hmm.
Um, and the God rekindled the love that was there before and strengthened it even more. And so
Yeah.
I'm grateful for him. There's no competition in the marriage. He supports the ministry 100%. It's whatever I want to do. If I say God said it, he's there to support it, and not, well,
Yes.
why you got to do it now? And no, we don't have finances to do this, and you need to go pray about it again. And I ain't hear God say that. I don't get any of that. It's just, if this is what God said, then what do I need to do to make it happen?
Yep.
Um, I thank God that He loves to travel as much as me, because
Exactly.
I do like to travel a lot, but so does he. And so God has just, he been through a lot of hurt and pain, and so have I. And God healed me in the shelter. I believe God healed me in when I was in the safe house. Um, and then I came here, and once we started dating, I had to realize that what I've been through, he is not that guy. That's not his character.
Right.
That's not his demeanor. Because he would say something, and I'd be looking like, all right, don't, don't go.
Don't trip.
I'm not doing this again.
Yeah.
But I had to learn, really, to just allow him to love me the way I deserve to be loved.
Yeah.
And come although I had been divorced for 8 years, it was still, kind of play in the back of your mind still to be on alert. I'm looking for
Oh
red flags.
yeah.
I'm
Oh
watching
yeah.
you to see what you
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Yes.
watching to see how you gonna act. So,
Yeah.
when he went round to the door to open up my car door, I'm like, well, what you doing that for? I can open my own car door. I got
Oh goodness.
the kind of gentleman that he is.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. That's good. That's good.
and,
So
and
okay.
it's funny because the second book, it goes into a lot of details of the marriage, but it also talks about how God brought me out of the marriage.
Yeah.
Yeah, it talks
Yep.
about how God brought me out, and so I
Yeah.
guess I need to write a conclusion of where I am now with this marriage
Mm-hmm.
and history, and how God has favored us, and how God restored us being married before and bringing us back together again. Um, he healed and delivered for real.
Amen.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
He'll
Now
do it.
again, you said smashbooks.com.
Smash words.
Smash word.
Yes.
Word with an S on the end.
Yes.
Okay.
And what
Smashwords.com.
about your ministry? Because, being on this podcast, somebody may be facing something that they feel as though they might want to, contact your ministry about you being able to help them.
So I am on Facebook. My ministry page on Facebook is Sandra Miller's Lighthouse Ministries on Facebook. I'm not on Instagram right now. Um, I do accept engagements to preach, pray, teach. Um, as far as dealing with people that has been in domestic violence, domestic abuse situations, they can contact me personally through my Facebook page, just Sandra Miller's Facebook page. They can inbox me. I'm happy to assist in any way that I can. I can pray for them. I can help them with, get them into contact with other resources that I may not have, that they may need. um but it's a very real, it's a very real thing, and I don't take it lightly because I've been there. I know what it feels like. I know what it feels like to be alone in afraid and not knowing who you can turn to, who will listen, who will believe you. um and I'm not one of those people that are going to run and tell you business, that's for sure.
Right.
If they come to me and they're asking for help, or if they're reaching out just to have a listening ear or to have prayer, I promise you, you won't hear it again. If you don't
Yep,
tell it, I'm not gonna tell it.
yep,
That's for sure.
yep, absolutely. I think I'm glad you said that because that was one of the things that I was always asked when I had my women's group. How do you keep all of this information? And I said, it's not mine.
Right,
It's not my story.
right.
It's not for me. So the minute people understand that, then when things come to your ear, it just goes out the other ear. It's just not your story to tell. That's it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I just want to have you all, if y'all had some last words you wanted to leave with the people.
I would say to anyone, in any kind of relationship, whether it's abusive, verbally, physically, spiritually, mentally, if you're ever in a place where you don't feel safe, to just seek help. You have to be wise in how you do it and when you do it. Be prayerful. Always remember to pray and to seek God and allow Him to minister to your heart truth. Sometimes we don't want to hear the truth. And even in this marriage, there was things that
Yeah.
God told me, and I'm one of those people that I'm gonna go to bat for you first. And I'm just like, oh no, God, that's not what He meant. That's not what it wasn't like that, God. So you have to be in a place to receive truth,
Yeah.
the good and the ugly. And it's not
Yeah.
always easy,
Yep,
but it's the truth that shall make you free.
yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. Cherise.
Well, I can't. Erica, can I borrow your book? Because I really want to read this.
Absolutely. I got two of them. I just got to find the other one.
Yes, I want to read this book. I am intrigued.
But
I
I'll send you a
just,
second copy.
I just feel like the strength of a woman. Sometimes we as women don't even tap into the strength that God has given us and the ability to push forward. I know that there has been things that I've went through in my life, and it's like I'm hanging on a rope and I'm just taking it, and I keep on pushing because I keep telling God, I know you ain't let me go through all this stuff for nothing. So just to um but just to know that any trial that you may face in your life as a woman, as a mother, as a sister, as a auntie, all of those things are used for you to build character in you and to build up the kingdom is what I do know. And that is the encouragement that I have.
All right, all right. I'll share something that I actually just shared with my friend Brenda, who was on our podcast last month. And Sandra, I don't know if you knew Brenda wrote her first book, Enough is Enough. That's the title of her book. We had her on the podcast last month, and I just shared something with her. I was listening to a girl's TikTok, and she was talking about how there was a young lady who was running a marathon, and in running that marathon, her friend flew in from another country to see her run. And when she got towards the end of the race, she saw that friend. She's still running, but she's now bawling in tears. And she's bawling in tears because she's so grateful for her friend to fly from another country just to see her run this marathon. And the analogy that the young girl was making was, when you have healthy friendships and healthy people that are around you and people who can love on you genuinely, don't
Yeah.
accept no joker treating you like dirt when you got love all around you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Period. Don't accept that. When you got people who love you, someone who will fly from another country just to see you run,
See you
she could have
run.
saw that on Facebook.
Right?
But she flew in because it was important for her to be there. So when you have people that are
Yeah.
there for you, do not settle for someone who's not there for you. If they ain't ready to be there for you, go move them to the side, honey. They'll
Uh-huh.
either grow up or move down the street.
Okay.
Right.
That's it. They'll either grow up or move down the street. So don't be strong enough to love yourself, to know that you got good people around you.
Yes.
And that love will hold you until the love
Yeah.
that God has for you, until
Yeah.
the man that God has for you. Trust me, you'll be a whole lot more happier with the love that you have around you than being miserable with somebody who
Yes.
don't love you enough to grow up.
Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
Right.
yeah, absolutely. So I just wanted to share that with you all, ladies. I thank you so much for Apostle Miller, for Sharice, for joining us tonight. This has really been a blessing for me, and I pray that it's been a blessing to the ones who are here and those who are listening in. We did have some people coming in and out of the room tonight. It was a blessing. I'm glad you all were able to see it. Watch it. You can either go on the YouTube page or you can go on the Facebook page and watch it. Share it. If you know someone who may be going through something that's a tough time, share it. Now, what we did not say tonight is what the secret is. You're going to have to get the book in order to find out what the secret was. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Get the book in order to find out what the secret was, honey. So, this is a wonderful book. Once again, My Secret Life Being a Pastor's Wife. Now, I'll tell you, I went to search for it on Amazon. For some reason, I couldn't find it, but I did a Google search, and Google sent me straight to Amazon. So, if you do a Google search for the book, I promise you, you'll find it. And this is the cover of the book. If you can see the cover, this is the cover of the first version of the book. And Sandra, hold up the cover of the second version. And that is the second volume of that book right there. And that is on smashwords.com, the second volume. So thank you guys for listening in. I really appreciate you all. And you all have a blessed evening.